You ever have one of those moments? You type something into a search bar, you are absolutely confident you've picked the perfect words, and then the results you get back are just weirdly off. Yeah, we've all been there. It's a classic, and frankly, a super frustrating problem. So, what's going on here? Why do these incredibly powerful systems sometimes just completely miss the mark on what feels like a really simple request? Well, the answer comes down to a huge difference between just matching words and truly understanding your intent. Let's look at a classic example. You search for BBQ near Charlotte because, you're hoping for a great place to eat. But instead, you get a review of some festival. Why? Because the old way of doing search was just a box-checking exercise. It looked for documents that had BBQ, near, and Charlotte in them. It found them, sure, but it totally missed what you were actually asking for. Look, the problem isn't you, and it's not even your keywords. The real issue is that traditional search often acts like one of those literal genies. It gives you exactly what you say, not what you actually mean. To get better results, the engine itself has to get a whole lot smarter. And that smarter approach has a name: semantic search. Honestly, the best way to picture it is like a pipeline, a kind of master translator that takes your normal, everyday language and converts it into a super precise command that a machine can understand and, more importantly, get right. Okay, so let's dive into how this pipeline actually works. It's really a four-step journey. First, it parses your query, breaks it down. Then, it enriches those pieces with a ton more context to figure out what you're really after. Next, it transforms that request into a perfect command for the machine. And then finally, it runs the search. To really see this thing in action, we're going to follow a new, slightly trickier query all the way through the pipeline: top kimchi near Charlotte. Now, a simple keyword search for this, it would almost certainly come up with nothing. So let's start with those first two phases, parsing and enriching. This is where the search engine basically puts on its detective hat. It breaks apart your query, looks for important clues, and starts gathering a whole bunch of extra context. The very first step is parsing. The system scans your query, and right away it recognizes some words as special. Here it flags top, near, and Charlotte because it has special rules for them. But kimchi, for now, is just left as the main subject, an unknown keyword. So those little tags you just saw, they trigger something called a semantic function. And this is a fancy way of saying it gives words like top and near superpowers. They stop being just words the engine needs to find, they become instructions it needs to follow. And here's what those instructions actually look like. The semantic function for top becomes a command to boost results based on their star rating. And the function for near Charlotte turns into this really precise geographical filter. Find things within a 50-kilometer radius of Charlotte's exact GPS coordinates. Pretty cool, right? Okay, that's really clever for the words it knows, but what about the most important word here? Kimchi. The engine didn't have a special tag for it. So how does it figure out what that means? This is where the enrichment phase really starts to shine. It uses something called a semantic knowledge graph. By analyzing millions and millions of articles and reviews all over the web, it's learned that the word kimchi almost always hangs out with concepts like Korean food, banchan, and bulgogi. So it enriches the query by adding these related ideas, which just dramatically boosts the chances of finding something useful. All right, on to phase 3, transforming. All that parsing and enriching has given the engine a really deep understanding of what you want. So the next step is to rewrite all of that understanding into a language the search database can actually work with. So the key here is that we are building a completely new custom-made query. The goal isn't just to find stuff anymore, it's to find the best stuff by optimizing for two things: recall, which is getting a good number of relevant results, and ranking, which is making sure the highest quality ones are at the top. And here it is, the final translation. Your simple 4-word phrase has been morphed into this powerful 3-part command. First, boost results that have high star ratings. Second, search for stuff that contains either the word kimchi or the word Korean. And third, filter all of that to only show things within 50 kilometers of Charlotte. So after all that incredibly sophisticated work that happens in like milliseconds behind the scenes, what does it actually mean for you? What's the final payoff? Let's just do a quick recap. What would have happened if we'd used a basic, literal keyword search for that same phrase? That's right, a big, fat 0. A literal search just completely fails because it's looking for that exact phrase. And guess what? That exact phrase probably doesn't exist in any restaurant review
anywhere.
But now, let's see what our master translator, the semantic pipeline, was able to dig up with its new supercharged query.
And there it is. Perfect. A beautiful list of top-rated, super relevant Korean restaurants right there in Charlotte. It found exactly what you wanted, even though none of them might have used the precise words you typed. That is the power of understanding intent over just matching keywords.
Ultimately, the huge takeaway here is a fundamental shift in how we should be thinking about what makes search technology really, truly great. It's not about being a better dictionary or a faster word index. It's about being a better interpreter of meaning. By parsing, enriching, and transforming our intent, technology can finally and really reliably bridge that gap between what we say and what we actually mean. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, right? This tech is getting more and more common in search. But where else could this deep understanding of what we actually want completely change how we interact with the tools we use every single day?